Okay, welcome. My name is Joe Gelson, and I'm going to be doing Lab 7 for NOS 130. Many students have been having trouble with this lab in the past semester, so I wanted to go over and explain some stuff so that you can take a look at it and understand it. Lesson 7 is about controlling access to local hardware and applications. So in this scenario, in this lab, we're going to learn how to install remote server administration tools. We're also going to configure removable storage access policy. And we're also going to use AppLocker to restrict software. So to get started, all we need to do to install the remote server administration tools is to click on the B workstation, click the Control-Alt-Delete option up here to unlock the screen. When we want to log in as the ADATUM administrator with a password of capital P, A, $, W0RD. Okay, once it's up, we want to go ahead and switch to the desktop. Once we're on the desktop, we're going to open up the File Explorer. The File Explorer icon is down here. And we're going to want to access an install file. The server we want to connect to is called SVR DC-A. Put a slash after it, and we want to look into the downloads share. So we're going to click on that. When we do, we'll actually see two files in there. In the lab, we want to click on the Windows 6.2 Knowledge Base 2693-643 file. So that's the first one right here. We're going to right click it, and we'll say Open. And what that executable is a standalone installer that will set up your remote server administration tools. And as it's unpacking, the reason we want to use remote server administration tools is so that we don't have to log on to the server every time we want to administer it. For instance, maybe I want to add a role to one of my servers, or maybe configure group policies, or add a user to a server. I no longer need to connect to the server to do that anymore. I can load these remote server administration tools on a workstation, such as a Windows 8 machine, and be able to do everything that I need to do right from my desktop in the IT department. I don't have to get physical access to that server, and I don't have to remote desktop into it. Remember, remote desktop and logging into the actual server uses up resources, and your server might not have resources to spare. So this is a real simple, easy way to connect to the server and configure it, and it allows us to do it from a familiar Windows 8 work environment. So it may take a few minutes for the executable to unpack, so we're going to wait for that. It's now asking us if we want to install the following software update. We'll say yes. Once the installation is complete, we'll go ahead and click the Close button. Okay, our tools are now installed. We can now go ahead and click on the desktop, switch back to the Metro interface, and you'll notice now we have two new tiles. We've got administrative tools and we've got the server manager. We'll move on to exercise 7.2. Okay, for exercise 7.2 we're going to configure some policies. And the way we configure those policies is we go into the administrative tools tile, and the tool that we use to set policies is going to be not used yet. We're actually going to use Active Directory users and computers. And we're going to create some structure so we can tell Active Directory who these policies are to apply to. So this is our Active Directory users and computers console. We're going to expand our domain. Our domain is called adatum.com. Next thing I'm going to do is right-click the domain, and I'm going to say New Organizational Unit. And we really haven't talked about organizational units yet. Organizational units allows us to organize our computers and users into groups, not really groups, but containers that we can set these policies to apply to. So maybe we only want the public computers to have Internet Explorer locked down. I would make an OU for public computers, and then I could move the computers into that OU and then put a policy on the OU, and then that policy would only apply to the computers that were contained in the organizational unit. So we're going to make a new one. Just click Organizational Unit. It wants us to give it a name. We're going to name this one Restricted. We're going to hit OK. Okay. So now we're going to close the Active Directory users and computers. And we're going to the Group Policy Management console. So we made an OU to put our policies on. Now we're actually going to create one of the policies or settings for our computer. And we do that through the Group Policy Management console. So we'll click it there. As you can see in the Group Policy Management console, there's different levels we can set policies. In class we went over LSD-OU. So we can set up policies at the domain level, that's the D. We can set up policies at the site level, that's the S. Or we can set them up at the OU level, which is inside of this domain. I'm going to go ahead and widen out this column, and we can see we already have some group policy objects. There are two that are always created by default. There's a default domain controllers policy and there's a default domain policy. Those are created by Active Directory when it's first installed. Typically we don't change them. That's a placeholder for Active Directory. What we want to do is make a new group policy object, and the way we do that is we right-click Policy Objects and we'll say New. It wants us to name it. What we typically do is name the policy with a name that has something to do with the settings it contains. So we're going to name this one Hardware and Software Restrictions. So when we look at that later on, we'll remember that that's the type of settings that are contained in that group policy object. We're going to hit OK. It's going to go ahead and create a group policy object, but the group policy object is not actually going to have any settings. To add settings to the policy object, we're going to have to right-click it and hit Edit. Notice the group policy has two sections. One is called Computer and one is called User. When you do things with group policies and you're following directions in labs, you need to make sure that you're under the right section for the policy you're trying to set. There are some settings that only apply to computers and there are some settings that only apply to users. In this lab, they want us to open up the user configuration section, expand the policies node, administrative templates node, system node, and then we're going to change some of the removable storage settings. So here's the removable storage access. We're going to click that container. For this particular exercise, we're going to stop somebody from writing to a DVD or CD. So to do that, we're going to double click the CD and DVD deny write access. And setting the policy is very simple. All we do is we say enabled. And then from then on, anybody that this policy applies to is not going to be able to write to a DVD. If I didn't want somebody to be able to write to a USB drive, I could also do that by saying removable disk deny write access. And that would effectively stop them from saving any files to a USB device. They would still be able to read information from the USB device, but not write back to it. Okay, so we've finished setting up the policy that we want. We're going to close this editor. The last step to applying a policy is to link it to the OU that it's going to apply to. So we're not really finished yet. We've made a policy, we've named it, but we haven't told Active Directory who it's going to apply to. The way we do that is in the Group Policy Management Console, we're going to right-click the restricted OU, and we're going to link an existing group policy object, and we're going to link the one we had just created. Once that is done, that policy is now going to apply to any user that is contained within that restricted organizational unit. And that's the end of exercise 7.2. In exercise 7.3, we're going to do a little bit with App Locker. We still have our group policy management console open, so we don't need to open it up again. We're going to use the same group policy object called hardware and software restrictions. Okay. We need to make sure we click on the group policy object itself and not the link. We're going to right click it and we're going to edit it. So we're actually going to add some settings to this group policy object. This time we're going to go under the computer settings, under policies, under Windows settings, under security settings, under application control policies, and then there should be an App Locker node under there. We're going to click it, and then we're going to expand it. The type of rule that we want to create today is going to be an executable rule. It's going to allow or disallow a certain executable from running. Now, executables can be files that end in .exe, .com, or any other kind of shell scripts that people are going to try to run or execute. I'm going to right-click Executable Rules. And I'm going to say Create Default Rules. These are the defaults that come prepackaged with Windows. And if we look at these, we can see it allows anyone to run any application that is located in the Program Files folder in the hard drive, any application that is in the Windows folder on the hard drive, and then it allows the administrator to run an application from any place on the computer. We're going to click the, so we automatically created that. We're going to create installer rules now. So we're going to create the same thing for these window installer rules, and we're going to say create default rules, and it is also going to create 3 rules. And you notice the default ones it created was everyone can run all digitally signed Windows installer files. Everyone can also install anything that's in the system drive, which is where your operating system is stored, the Windows folder installer. So anyone on the computer that's logged in can run installers from those locations. If you're an administrator, it's going to allow you to run all installer files, whether it's signed or whether it's any place on the hard drive, any folder. So that's what those default rules have set up for us to do. We're going to go down to the script rules. Do the same thing. Create default rules. We can see here, everyone can execute a script in a program files folder, everyone can execute a script that's in the Windows folder, and the administrator can execute scripts from anywhere on the system. We're going to make a little modification here. We're going to click on the executable rules. One of the rules they created was called all files located in the Windows folder. And what we can do is, by default right now, it's allowing everything in the Windows folder to be able to run, and we don't want that. What we're going to do is set up an exception. So everyone's going to be able to run any application in the Windows folder, with one exception. We're going to use a path rule. We don't want them running regedit. So we need to go under C, Windows, and the regedit executable is actually located under Windows folder. There it is. We're going to hit open. Okay. Now you notice that exception shows up in here. So now that's an exception to the general rule. Also, in a general tab, we should modify this a little bit so that it reflects what we did. So we're going to say all files located in the Windows folder except regedit. That just lets everybody else know that we changed the default rule a little bit, if that makes any sense. The next step is to create another rule for executables. We're going to click Next. What we're going to do is here we're going to select a user. It wants us to enter a name in this box. It's called Group. Policy. Creator. Owners. We're going to click this button here, and that just checks to make sure that's an actual user. And if it underlines it, does it give you an error message? That means it found that user. We'll hit OK. We're going to click Next. Wants us to choose what type of primary condition that we'd like to create. We're going to create another path rule. Wants us to set up that same executable not to be able to run. We're going to click Create. And the reason we're doing this is the lab wants you to know that we can create rules that are based just upon specific users or specific groups. So that's the end of the assigned labs. If you want to continue on and do the lab challenge, we can do that. The lab challenge would like us to create an app locker rule based on a file hash. Sometimes when administrators block a file based on a specific path, some users will try to install or copy a file to a different folder or a different path and run the program from there. You can block a file based on the file hash, which will stop the program from running no matter where the file is. So what we'll do is we'll create an app locker rule that will deny users from running the math input panel based on the file hash. The math input panel is located at C Program Files Common, Microsoft Shared, Inc., MIP.exe. Write out the procedure you use to configure these settings and then take a screenshot of the container where the settings are located by pressing Print, Alt Print Screen, and then paste the resulting image into Lab 7 worksheet. Okay. So what we're going to do is go about making that new rule, and I can actually do it right here. We don't want anyone in the organization running the Microsoft Shared Inc. application. So the thing we're going to do is we're going to start off and we're going to say create new rule. We're going to say deny. So this is going to be a deny rule. It's going to deny everyone. We're going to base this rule on a file hash. Remember, the reason we do that is so that no matter where the user runs the application from, it's going to block it. Some users are a little bit smarter than others, and they'll figure out that they can move the file to a different path and execute it. So we're going to say next. We're going to find the file that we don't want run on the system, and it said it was in C, Program Files, Common, Microsoft Shared, Inc., and it's called MIP. I'm going to hit open. When we do that, it's going to calculate a thumbprint or digital signature of that executable. We're going to hit next and create. So now we have a deny rule that is going to deny anyone from running that MIP executable. There are a couple of things that we need to do to actually get it to take effect. One of the things we have to do is make sure that the policy is applied in the correct place. Remember, we applied the policy in the restricted OU? Let's go back to that. So we applied the policy to the restricted OU. If we look in Active Directory Users and Computers, we'll see there's no computers or users actually in the OU called restricted. So what we're going to do is something a little bit different. We're going to link that policy to the domain also. So you can take a policy and link it in multiple places. what we'll do is we'll go to the Group Policy Management window. At the domain level, we will right-click. We will say Link an existing group policy object. The policy that we are testing is hardware and software restrictions. We can see it's linked now. And the way that these group policy objects work is any OUs that are below where the policy is applied inherit the settings from above. So we're on workstation member B. If we look under Active Directory users and computers, we can see the computer is underneath the domain called adatum. So any group policies that apply there should apply to these computers here. One thing we have to be careful of is we need to make for AppLocker to work, we need to make sure that special service is running. Do you remember what that service is? Let's go and see. We'll go under the computer management, snap in here. Open up the Service and Applications tree and look under the Services node. The service we're interested in is the Application Identity Service, and that allows us to block applications with AppLocker. See, it says it determines and verifies the identity of an application. Disabling this service will prevent AppLocker from being enforced. So we need to make sure it's turned on. So we're going to double click it. We'll say it's going to start up automatically from now on, and we're actually going to start it now. We'll apply it. Just for fun, we'll see if we can actually run the application now that it didn't want us running. So we're going to Computer, Program Files, Common Files, Microsoft Shared, Inc. And remember, it was the MIP executable we didn't want them running. So we'll try to open that. Notice it's actually running right now. Some settings that we set, particularly computer settings, will not take effect till the computer is rebooted. So we're going to go ahead and do a reboot and see if our policy actually took effect. Okay, our computer is back up. We will log in again. Remember, the password is capital P at $W0RD. You'll notice this time when we try to run the executable, it will tell me my system administrator has blocked the program. For more information, contact your system administrator. They will get that message no matter what executable it is. If you've blocked it, they'll get a message telling them that you're the one that basically stopped them from running the executable. So it's pretty simple. We create a group policy object. We use the app wizard to specify which file we do not want them to run, and then we turn on the application identity service. Now, we also said because it was a hash, no matter where we move the file, we would not be able to run it. So let's test that too. I'm going to make a copy of that executable onto the desktop. Okay, so we actually have the executable on a desktop now. Close that. And now we're going to go ahead and actually execute that application. And we'll see indeed that it also blocks it when it is trying to run from the desktop itself. That's the end of the lab challenge. I hope you understood everything. If not, send me an email. Have a good weekend.